My husband's best friend kept sleepwalking into our bed and cuddling him. I decided to heal her completely. My husband Jordan's best friend Megan started sleepwalking into our bed every time she stayed over, always ending up on his side pressed against him while I woke up to find another woman wrapped around my husband. The first time it happened in January, Megan was staying in our guest room after a night out, and I woke up at 3 a.m. to find her under our covers with her arms around Jordan's waist. Jordan woke up confused and Megan acted shocked, claiming she had no memory of walking to our room and must have been sleepwalking because she'd done it since childhood. She apologized profusely and said how embarrassing it was while wearing tiny pajamas that barely covered anything. Jordan believed her immediately and said we shouldn't make her feel bad about a medical condition she couldn't control. He actually comforted her while she cried about being so humiliated, hugging her in our bed while I stood there watching. The second time happened 2 weeks later when Megan stayed over after dinner, and again she ended up in our bed at 2 a.m., this time with her leg thrown over Jordan's body. She claimed the guest bed triggered her sleepwalking episodes because it was unfamiliar, and maybe she needed to sleep on our couch instead. Jordan said that was ridiculous, and she should just stay in the guest room, but maybe leave the door locked so she couldn't wander. But somehow she still managed to unlock the door in her sleep and find her way to Jordan's side of our bed perfectly, without bumping into anything or making noise. I suggested Megan stop staying over if she had such severe sleepwalking, but Jordan said I was being cruel to someone with a medical issue. He said Megan couldn't help it and we needed to be understanding friends. He actually got angry when I said it was suspicious that she only sleepwalked to his side of the bed and never got lost or went anywhere else. He said I was accusing his friend of lying about a serious condition, and that showed what kind of person I was. By February, Megan was staying over every weekend and sleepwalking into our bed like clockwork. She'd always end up spooning Jordan or having him spoon her, claiming she had no memory of it happening. Jordan started expecting it and would just let her stay when she showed up instead of waking her because he said disturbing sleepwalkers was dangerous. I'd wake up to find my husband cuddling another woman who'd conveniently worn silk nightgowns or lacy underwear to sleep in. When I said sleepwalkers don't usually change into sexy clothes first, Jordan said I was sexualizing a medical emergency and being jealous of someone who needed help. Megan started telling our friends about her terrible sleepwalking condition that only happened at our house, and how sweet Jordan was for not making her feel bad about it. She'd dramatically describe waking up confused in our bed with no memory while Jordan protected her from my accusations. Our friends started thinking I was heartless for not being sympathetic to Megan's condition. Some even suggested Jordan was such a good friend for handling it so maturely while I was being petty and suspicious. That's when I decided to cure Megan's sleepwalking permanently. I started by installing a lock on our bedroom door that could only be opened from inside, telling Jordan it was for Megan's safety, so she couldn't accidentally hurt herself trying to get in. The first night with the lock, we heard Megan trying the handle at 2 a.m., jiggling it repeatedly and even knocking softly. Jordan wanted to let her in, but I said that would encourage her sleepwalking, and we needed to break the pattern. We listened to her try to get in for 20 minutes before she gave up. The next morning, Megan said she'd had the worst night's sleep because her sleepwalking had been frustrated, and she'd woken up exhausted in the hallway. Jordan felt terrible, but I said this proved she was getting better since she'd woken up instead of wandering more. I suggested she see a sleep specialist since her condition was so severe, and offered to go with her for support. Megan quickly said that wasn't necessary, and her sleepwalking was actually improving. Next, I started setting up obstacles between the guest room and ours like chairs in the hallway, and a baby gate at the top of the stairs. Megan miraculously never hit any of them during her sleepwalking, navigating perfectly in the dark to reach our locked door. When I pointed this out, she said muscle memory guided her, but couldn't explain how muscle memory worked in a house she'd only started visiting recently. I then told Jordan we should help Megan by recording her sleepwalking to show doctors, and I set up motion-activated cameras in the hallway. Megan suddenly stopped sleepwalking completely, claiming the locked door had cured her because her subconscious knew it couldn't get in. But I'd already caught her on camera from earlier nights, fully awake, carefully walking to our room while checking if we were asleep. The best part was when I invited Megan's ex-boyfriend Paul to dinner without telling her. Paul showed up at 7:30 looking confused when I opened the door, and I watched Megan's face turn white as she stood behind me in the entryway. Jordan rushed over with a big smile and shook Paul's hand, asking how he'd been since they last saw each other at that work thing, while Megan made a weird choking sound and grabbed the wall for support. She stammered something about feeling sick suddenly and maybe needing to lie down, but I smiled and said dinner was ready and we should all sit before the food got cold. Paul kept glancing between Megan and me like he was trying to figure out what was happening, and Megan wouldn't look at him at all as we walked to the dining room. Jordan pulled out chairs for everyone and started talking about his latest project at work, completely missing how Megan's hands were shaking when she picked up her water glass. I served the pasta and salad while making small talk about the weather, waiting for the right moment to bring up the real reason I'd invited Paul over without telling anyone. About halfway through dinner, I mentioned how Megan had been dealing with this terrible sleepwalking problem that only seemed to happen at our house, and Paul's eyebrows shot up so fast I almost laughed. He put down his fork and looked at Megan with this expression I couldn't quite read, something between surprise and understanding, and Megan started eating faster like she wanted to finish and leave. Paul said he actually remembered Megan having a similar issue when they dated 3 years ago, except back then she kept sleepwalking into his roommate's bed instead of Paul's. Jordan stopped chewing and looked at Paul with interest, asking if she'd gotten help for it back then, and Megan kicked Paul under the table hard enough that he winced. Paul ignored her and kept talking, explaining how the sleepwalking mysteriously stopped.